The citadel of Valeria shimmered under the light of 3 suns, its tall towers reflecting gold and silver like a mirror to the stars. From the highest balcony, Empress Leora looked over her city. Her robes, made of the finest threads from the distant world of Arion, flowed around her like liquid starlight. Despite her calm appearance, there was a flicker of tension in her eyes. Inside the citadel, the grand halls were filled with advisors and officials. They moved like a swarm of anxious insects, voices rising and falling in a constant hum of worry. Each advisor had their own theory about what might go wrong during the upcoming interstellar summit. Some feared sabotage from rival planets. Others whispered about political spies hiding in the shadows. Captain Kale, the human guard, stood quietly at the back of the hall, his posture straight and alert. Unlike the alien advisors, he said very little. He had observed the Empress for months and noticed things that no one else seemed to see. He noticed the small tremor in her hands when she studied reports. He noticed how her eyes lingered on certain objects longer than others. He noticed the way she sometimes paused mid-step, almost as if listening to something invisible. The advisors, however, were too busy panicking to notice. They argued loudly, trying to predict every possible danger. "The artifacts from Lorien Prime are dangerous," one shouted. "They could carry toxins or psychic influence." "The summit could be a trap," another added. "Do we have enough security? Are our spies ready?" Kale did not speak. He observed, as always, keeping an eye on the Empress and the strange artifact recently delivered to the Citadel. It was a gift from a distant planet, a gift that gleamed with colors that seemed almost alive. The advisors, of course, were terrified. They whispered that it could be cursed or enchanted, and some even suggested hiding it immediately. But the Empress seemed drawn to it. Her fingers hovered over the smooth surface of the artifact, and her eyes reflected its shifting colors. She did not speak, but her expression showed curiosity, not fear. Kale noticed that she seemed almost compelled by it. That alone was enough to make him uneasy. Later that day, the Empress held a private audience with Kyle. The other guards were asked to leave. "Captain," she said softly, "have you noticed anything unusual about the artifact?" Kale nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Majesty. It seems to affect your focus. It's subtle, but I believe it is trying to influence your decisions." Leora's brow furrowed. "Influence my decisions? But how?" "And why would anyone send such a thing?" "I cannot be certain," Kale replied. "But it is unlike any technology or magic I have encountered before. It may not be dangerous in the usual sense. It may be trying to speak to your mind." The Empress considered his words. She had always trusted her human guard. Even when others dismissed him as quiet or unimportant, there was a sharp intelligence in his eyes, a kind of perception that she had learned to respect. "Keep it close," she said, "but monitor it. I want to understand it before anyone panics." Kale bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." That evening, the Citadel was alive with preparations for the summit. Alien diplomats arrived, each representing their planets and species. Some had scales and claws, others had flowing robes and soft, luminous skin. The halls echoed with alien languages, creating a strange harmony of sounds. The advisors were in a frenzy. They moved the artifact from room to room, testing it, scanning it, analyzing it. None of their devices detected anything harmful, yet their fear grew. Kale, meanwhile, simply watched. He noticed how the Empress's eyes followed the artifact even when she tried to focus elsewhere. He noticed the slight pause in her speech when she passed near it. He felt a quiet alarm in his chest that he could not explain fully. As night fell, the Empress walked through the quiet corridors alone, Kyle following silently behind. The Citadel, which had been so bright during the day, now seemed to hold shadows in every corner. The 3 moons rose above Valeria, casting a pale light through the tall windows. Leora stopped before the artifact, which now rested on a pedestal in her private chamber. "I feel it," she whispered, almost to herself. "Something reaching." Kale stepped closer. "It is trying to reach you, Your Majesty, but I will protect you. I promise." She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and worry. "I trust you, Kale. I always have." For a long time, they simply watched the artifact together. The colors shifted and swirled, almost like a living being. Kyle noticed that every time the Empress touched it lightly, her expression changed. She seemed to see things that were not there, or hear things that no one else could hear. Suddenly, a soft hum filled the room, vibrating through the walls and floor. The advisor's alarms would have gone off if they had been present, but Kale felt the hum in his bones. It was not threatening, yet it carried a strange power, a quiet insistence that made him tense. "Do you hear it?" Leora asked. "Yes, Your Majesty," Kale replied. "It is not a sound meant for the ears of others, it is directed at you." The Empress touched the artifact again. This time her body froze for a moment. Her eyes glazed over and she whispered words in a language that Kale did not recognize. He rushed forward and placed his hand gently on her arm. "Do not let it control you, Your Majesty. Focus on me." Her eyes cleared immediately and she looked at him with alarm. "It is stronger than I thought," she said. "It shows me things. Possible futures, warnings, but they are confusing like a storm in my mind." Kale nodded. "Then we must learn quickly how to block it. We cannot let it dictate your choices, Your Majesty. Not when the summit begins tomorrow." The Empress studied him closely. "You understand something that my advisors do not, Kale. They panic at the smallest hint of danger, but you observe, you wait, you see what others miss." Kyle shrugged slightly, a faint smile touching his lips. "Humans are patient. We notice details others overlook. That is all, Your Majesty." For the rest of the night they worked together, studying the artifact, testing its reactions. Kale noted subtle patterns, the way it pulsed when she thought certain thoughts, the way its colors shifted when she moved closer or farther. Leora, for the first time, relied fully on him, placing her trust not in fear or advisors but in human insight. Meanwhile, the advisors' anxiety grew. They paced the corridors, whispering to each other, imagining threats that might never come. Kale observed them from a distance, noting how their panic clouded their judgment. He realized that while the artifact was a true threat, the human mind, calm, steady, perceptive, might be the only thing capable of saving the Empress from harm. As the first light of dawn touched the towers of Valaria, the Empress finally rested, her hand still on the artifact. Kale remained standing by her side, vigilant, aware that tomorrow's summit would test them all. He knew that the artifact's influence was only the beginning. Greater challenges were coming, and the safety of the Empress and perhaps the entire Empire might depend on human courage, intuition, and unwavering vigilance. For the first time, the Empress allowed herself a small smile. "With you watching, Kale, perhaps I will survive this storm," she whispered. Kale nodded. "And we will face it together, Your Majesty. Whatever comes, we will be ready." The citadel seemed calm from the outside, but within its walls tensions were rising. The artifact waited silently, and the shadows of the unknown stretched across the corridors. Only Kale truly understood the danger and the importance of being ready. And so, under the light of 3 suns and 3 moons, the calm before the storm settled over Valaria, hiding the coming trials that would test the Empress, her advisors, and the human guard who saw what no one else could. The day after the artifact's arrival, the citadel of Valaria seemed quieter than usual. The 3 suns hung high in the sky, casting long golden rays across the towers and courtyards. Yet beneath the surface of calm, tension grew like a slow storm. The alien advisors whispered among themselves, their voices sharp and nervous. Every small movement, every glance from the Empress became a reason for alarm. Captain Kale observed quietly from his post near the Grand Hall. Humans had a natural ability to notice things others overlooked, a subtle awareness of small details. He had seen it before, how a slight tremor in the Empress's hand, a flicker in her gaze, or the softest change in her posture could reveal more than pages of reports. Today he noticed something new. The artifact, resting on a pedestal in the private chamber, seemed to hum faintly. It was not a sound for ordinary ears, but a vibration that resonated through the floor and walls. The advisors did not hear it. Only Kale and now the Empress sensed its quiet pulse. The Empress entered the hall, her robes brushing the polished floor. Her expression was calm, almost serene, but Kale noticed her eyes flickered toward the artifact more than once. "Captain," she said softly, "I cannot stop thinking about it. It shows me things. Possibilities. Some are beautiful, some terrifying. I do not understand why I see them or why it calls to me." Kyle nodded. "It is not calling to you like a friend, Your Majesty. It is testing you. It wants to guide your choices, but not for your benefit. We must be careful." Meanwhile, the advisors grew increasingly restless. They argued over what should be done with the artifact. "It is dangerous," one shouted. "We should lock it away immediately." No, another replied. If we insult the sender, it could be an act of war. The summit could fail before it begins. Kale watched them, noting their panic and overreaction. Their fear blinded them to what was truly happening. Unlike the Empress, they could not see the subtle influence the artifact had on thoughts and decisions. Only a human, patient, and perceptive could notice such fine details. As the summit approached, strange events began to occur. Communication systems occasionally crackled, showing distorted images and messages. Some diplomats claimed they heard whispers in languages they could not understand. The Empress, for her part, sometimes froze mid-sentence, repeating words she had not intended to say. Kale began to follow her secretly, observing when these moments occurred. One evening, he watched from the shadows as she approached the artifact. Her hand hovered just above its surface. For a brief moment, her body stiffened and a faint glow appeared in her eyes. She whispered a language Kale did not recognize. It was soft and melodic, yet strange and commanding. He realized that the artifact was speaking to her mind, trying to guide her actions. Kyle's heart pounded. If the Empress were to lose control, the consequences for the Empire could be devastating. He stepped forward quietly. "Your Majesty," he said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. The sound of his voice broke the artifact's influence for a moment. Her eyes cleared and she looked at him with a mixture of surprise and fear. "It is stronger than I thought," she admitted. "It shows me visions, possibilities that could happen if I make certain choices, but they are confusing. I do not know what is real and what is a warning." Kyle nodded. "Then we must find a way to block it. We cannot let it decide for you. Not now, not ever." The Empress studied him carefully. "You see it, Captain. You see what no one else sees. My advisors panic at shadows and rumors, but you watch and you understand. Perhaps that is why I trust you so completely." Kale bowed slightly. "I will protect you, Your Majesty. No matter what happens, I will ensure that the artifact does not control your mind or your decisions." For the next several hours, they worked together. Kale observed the artifact, noting the subtle pulses of energy and the changes in color that accompanied the Empress's thoughts. He tried small experiments, moving her slightly closer or farther, watching how the influence changed. The artifact's power grew stronger at night. During the quiet hours, the Empress would sometimes appear lost, staring into the air as though seeing things invisible to everyone else. Kale stayed near her constantly, ensuring that no harm came. Meanwhile, the alien advisors became more desperate. They whispered about sabotage, potential alien spies, and political threats. Some even suggested extreme measures, such as isolating the Empress or forcing her to step down temporarily. Kale knew that such actions could have serious consequences. Panic could destabilize the entire empire. One night, Kale saw something that made his heart race. The Empress approached the artifact alone, and her body began to move in a strange rhythm, almost like a dance. Faint holographic shapes appeared around her, projected from the artifact. They showed events from the past and possibilities of the future. Kale realized that the artifact was not just a gift or a curiosity. It was a tool of influence, perhaps even control. It was attempting to guide the Empress's decisions without her conscious awareness. He stepped forward carefully, making his presence known. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "do not let it guide you. Focus on me." Her eyes cleared again and she turned to him, breathing heavily. "It is like a storm in my mind. I can see paths and choices, but I do not know which are real. If I follow it blindly, I could make a terrible mistake." Kale nodded. "Then we will find a way to block it. Together we will ensure that the decisions are yours alone." Over the next few days, Kyle and the Empress devised a plan. They could not destroy the artifact. It was too advanced, too intertwined with unknown technologies. But they could protect her mind. Using simple tools and human ingenuity, Kale constructed a device that could shield the Empress's thoughts, preventing the artifact from reaching her fully. When they tested it, the effect was immediate. The visions became fainter, the whispers quieter, and the glow in her eyes diminished. For the first time since the artifact's arrival, the Empress felt a sense of control. "Your work is remarkable, Captain," she said. "I see now why humans are considered special in the galaxy. Your patience, your observation, your courage. It makes all the difference." Kale smiled faintly. "It is nothing, Your Majesty. I do what I must, but your strength is what allows us to act." We make a good team. As the summit day approached, tension filled the citadel. Alien diplomats arrived, more nervous than ever. The advisors, unaware of the protective measures, continued to panic over imagined threats. Only Kale and the Empress understood the true danger. On the eve of the summit, the Empress walked through the corridors with Kale. The artifact rested quietly in her chamber, its hum almost imperceptible. "Tomorrow will be difficult," she said, "but I feel ready. With you here, I feel capable of facing whatever comes." Kale nodded. "And I will be by your side, Your Majesty, always. No threat, no matter how subtle or hidden, will reach you while I am here." That night, the Empress rested with a rare calm, her mind shielded by Kale's device. The advisors, exhausted from their panic, slept uneasily, and the artifact, silent for the first time since its arrival, seemed to wait, patient and watchful. Kyle remained awake, his senses alert. He knew that this calm was temporary. The artifact's influence was subtle, and the challenges ahead would test not only the Empress but the entire Empire. But he also knew this. In a galaxy filled with powerful technologies, alien intelligence and unseen dangers, it was human courage, observation, and instinct that might save the day. And so, as the 3 moons rose over the towers of Valeria, the whispers and shadows grew quiet for now. Tomorrow, the true test would begin. The summit would arrive, and with it, challenges that only the human guard could foresee. Kyle watched over the Empress, ready to act, knowing that sometimes seeing what others miss makes all the difference. The summit began under the bright glow of Valeria's 3 suns, casting sparkling reflections across the towers and plazas. Delegates from distant worlds arrived in sleek ships, each representing their planet's power and intelligence. The alien advisors were frantic, whispering constantly about possible sabotage, espionage, or traps. They argued over every detail: security protocols, seating arrangements, and the most minor breaches of protocol. Captain Kyle stood near the Empress as always, quiet, alert, and ready. Humans were rare in Valeria's court, and even rarer in such high positions of trust. But Kale's calm and careful observation had already saved the Empress more than once. He watched her closely as she greeted the delegates. Though she smiled and spoke politely, Kale noticed a slight hesitation in her gestures and subtle pauses in her speech, signs that the artifact's influence still lingered. The advisors were too busy panicking to notice. They whispered to each other, speculating wildly. "The artifact might be a mind control device," one hissed. "Or worse, a weapon disguised as a gift." Kale ignored them. He had learned that fear made people blind to the truth. Only by observing calmly could he understand what was really happening. After the opening ceremonies, the Empress withdrew with Kale to a private chamber. "Captain," she said softly, "even with your device I feel its presence. It is subtle but persistent. I cannot ignore it entirely." Kale nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty. It wants to guide your thoughts, to influence your choices. It will not give up easily. But we are prepared. We only need to be vigilant and act decisively when necessary." They began a careful study of the artifact together. Kale noticed patterns in how the colors and hums changed, depending on her emotions and thoughts. "It is feeding off your attention," he explained. "If you remain calm and focused, its influence weakens. If you react with fear or panic, it strengthens." The Empress considered this. "So the key is not to fight it directly, but to control my response?" "Yes," Kale said. "Your mind must remain yours. The artifact cannot dominate what you control consciously." Meanwhile, the alien advisors grew more erratic. They misread every minor disturbance as a threat. Some suggested detaining the artifact, while others argued for evacuating the citadel entirely. Their fear of imagined enemies caused confusion and tension among the diplomats. Kyle realized that the human ability to remain calm under pressure was what would protect the Empress and the Empire. Unlike the advisors who panicked at shadows, humans could focus on facts, observe carefully, and act decisively. Later that day, during a private inspection, Kale observed the Empress interacting with the artifact. Her eyes flickered again, and she whispered in the strange alien language, almost revealing a confidential secret from Valeria's defenses. Kale stepped forward immediately, placing a steady hand on her arm. "Focus on me, Your Majesty." "Not it." Her eyes cleared once more. She took a deep breath and nodded. You are right, Kale. I must not allow it to control my mind. But its power, it is unlike anything I have faced before. Kale examined the artifact closely. It is not just technology or magic. It is a combination of both designed to communicate directly with a mind like yours. We cannot destroy it, but we can shield against it. And that is what we will do. Using his human ingenuity, Kale devised a stronger protective measure. He combined the original shielding device with a reflective energy matrix, creating a barrier that diverted the artifact's influence away from the Empress's thoughts. Testing it carefully, they found it effective. For the first time since its arrival, the Empress could approach the artifact without hesitation. You have done well, Kale, the Empress said, her voice calm but firm. Your insight and courage make a difference that no one else could provide. I am beginning to understand why humans are considered remarkable across the galaxy. Kale bowed slightly. I do what I must, Your Majesty, but your strength and composure are what allow us to succeed. Together we are stronger than any device, any intelligence, or any threat. That evening, the Empress and Kale walked through the dim corridors of the Citadel. The alien advisors, exhausted from their panic and confusion, had retired for the night. The artifact rested silently in its chamber, waiting. Kale could feel its presence, subtle and persistent. Suddenly, a soft vibration ran through the walls, a signal of the artifact's attempt to reach the Empress's mind. Kale acted immediately, guiding her to a safe distance and activating the protective barrier. The glow in her eyes faded and the faint whispers disappeared. The influence is weaker, Kyle said, but it will try again. We must remain vigilant. The Empress nodded. I understand now, Captain. It is not only the device we must confront, but the assumptions and fears of those around us. My advisors panic and their panic spreads. That is a danger in itself. Kale smiled faintly. Humans are patient, Your Majesty. We observe, we notice, and we act. Sometimes that is all it takes to save the day. The next morning, the summit continued. Delegates from various planets gathered, presenting gifts, sharing knowledge, and discussing alliances. The alien advisors whispered constantly, warning of hidden dangers in every conversation. Kale remained close to the Empress, ready to intervene whenever subtle influence appeared. During a discussion with a delegation from the planet Lorian Prime, the Empress paused, her hand trembling slightly. Kale noticed immediately. She was beginning to respond to the artifact's subtle suggestions. Acting quickly, he touched her shoulder. Focus on me, Your Majesty. Ignore the whispers. Her eyes cleared and she nodded. Thank you, Kyle. You have saved me again. Later, when the summit concluded for the day, the Empress and Kyle reviewed the events. The artifact is clever, she said. It is subtle, patient, and persuasive, but it cannot control a mind that knows how to resist. Exactly, Your Majesty, Kyle replied. The key is awareness. Most beings would panic or act without thinking, but humans can see the patterns and act decisively. That is why we are valuable, even in a universe full of powerful species. That night, Kale continued his watch. He noticed that the artifact sometimes pulsed in response to the advisors' fears, as if feeding off their panic. The realization made him more determined. It was not only the Empress's mind that needed protection, but also the clarity of those around her. Fear could spread like fire, and humans were often the first to notice it before it became destructive. As the moons rose, casting pale light across the Citadel, the Empress prepared for rest. Kyle remained near the artifact, guarding her. He understood that this was only the beginning. The artifact's influence was subtle, persistent, and clever. Yet he also knew that human courage, insight, and perception could counter even the most advanced alien devices. Finally, he allowed himself a small thought. In a galaxy filled with alien technologies and mysterious powers, it was the human ability to observe, remain calm, and act with courage that made a true difference. And as long as he remained vigilant, the Empress and the Empire would survive whatever challenges lay ahead. The artifact rested quietly in its chamber, its colors dimmed by the human-made protective device. The advisors slept uneasily, still unaware of the true danger. And the Empress, for the first time in days, felt a sense of control and confidence. Kale stood silently by her side, knowing that tomorrow would bring greater tests. The subtle influence of the artifact would grow, and the threats from beyond the known galaxies would begin to appear. But with human perception and courage guiding them, The Empress was ready to face the unknown. And so, under the light of Valaria's suns and moons, the human guard prepared for the challenges ahead, ready to act when others could not see, ready to save the Empress when the galaxy itself seemed uncertain. The summit continued, and the air in the citadel of Valeria grew heavy with tension. Delegates from distant planets spoke in measured tones, their voices carrying weight and authority. The alien advisors, however, were in a state of quiet panic. Each minor event, a flicker of lights, a paused conversation, a subtle glance, was interpreted as evidence of an unseen threat. Captain Kale, as always, observed silently. He had learned long ago that panic could be more dangerous than any real enemy. The artifact, which had already tested the Empress's mind, now began to extend its subtle influence toward the advisors. Small suggestions, almost imperceptible, shaped their thoughts. Fear became more pronounced. Suspicion sharpened. Arguments grew louder. Kale noticed it immediately. The advisors were acting without reason, making suggestions that could destabilize the summit or even endanger the Empress. They did not realize that their irrational decisions were being influenced by the artifact. Only a human's careful observation could see through this subtle manipulation. The Empress entered the chamber where the artifact rested, flanked by Kale. Her eyes, shielded by his protective device, were clear and focused. "Captain," she said quietly, "I can sense that it is affecting others now. My advisors. Their panic is not entirely their own." Kale nodded. "It is clever, Your Majesty. It seeks to control more than just you. It wants the Empire itself to follow its influence, but we can stop it if we act decisively." Together they devised a plan. Kale would move through the citadel, observing the advisors and detecting subtle signs of the artifact's influence. The Empress, protected by her shield, would act calmly, providing stability for the delegates and preventing the panic from spreading further. Their first test came quickly. During a meeting with delegates from the planet Theron, two advisors argued fiercely over seating arrangements and security measures. Their voices rose, nearly disrupting the diplomatic discussion. Kyle stepped quietly between them, placing a hand on each shoulder. "Stop," he said firmly. "You are being influenced. Focus on the facts, not your fears." The advisors blinked, confusion crossing their faces. They had no memory of the sudden clarity, but their anger faded. Kale guided them out of the room for a private discussion, ensuring the summit could continue without further disruption. Meanwhile, the artifact pulsed quietly, sensing that its influence was being resisted. It sent a soft vibration through the walls, attempting to reach the Empress indirectly. Kale activated the protective shield, and the glow in her eyes dimmed. She remained steady, her mind her own. "This is only the beginning," Kale said. "It will not give up easily. It will try again, in ways we cannot anticipate. But we are ready." The Empress nodded. "I see now that courage and observation are as powerful as any weapon. You have taught me this, Kale. Even when others panic, we can act decisively if we remain calm." That night, Kale made his rounds through the citadel. The alien advisors slept in uneasy quarters, still under subtle influence, their dreams filled with shadows and uncertainty. The artifact rested in its chamber, glowing faintly, as if aware that its attempts to control were being thwarted. Suddenly, Kale felt a stronger pulse, a direct attempt to reach the Empress's mind through the ambient energy of the citadel. He hurried to her chamber, finding her standing near the artifact, her eyes glowing faintly. "It is trying again," she whispered. "I feel it pulling at my thoughts, showing me visions I do not want to see." "It is stronger tonight." Kale activated the protective shield. The glow faded immediately and the soft whispers disappeared. "Stay calm, Your Majesty," he said. "It cannot control you while we are vigilant. We must act before it grows stronger." Together they devised a final step. Kale would approach the artifact directly, using a combination of energy barriers and human intuition to block its influence at the source. The Empress, shielded and calm, would provide a stable presence, anchoring the citadel and preventing panic from spreading further. The moment came just before dawn. Kale entered the artifact chamber alone, aware that any misstep could allow it to reach the Empress or manipulate the advisors further. The artifact's colors shifted rapidly, reacting to his presence. It pulsed softly, sending subtle suggestions into his mind, promises of power, illusions of ease. Kyle resisted. Humans were not as easily swayed by subtle suggestions. He focused on his training, his observations, and his loyalty to the Empress. Slowly, he approached the artifact, carefully positioning the energy barriers he had prepared. The artifact's glow intensified, and faint holographic shapes appeared, showing visions of the future, the past, and possibilities that never were. Kale's heart raced, but he did not falter. Step by step, he moved closer, placing each barrier until the influence was diverted away entirely. At last, the artifact rested silently, its colors dimmed, its whispers gone. Kyle exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the effort he had just made. He looked to the Empress, who had entered the chamber at the moment of his triumph. Her eyes were calm, her expression steady. "You have done it, Captain," she said softly. "You have stopped it from controlling not only me but everyone around me. Your courage and insight have saved the Empire." Kyle bowed. "We did it together, Your Majesty. The artifact cannot succeed as long as we remain vigilant and calm. Its cleverness is no match for human observation and courage." The Empress smiled faintly. "I see now that in a galaxy filled with intelligence and power, it is not always the strongest weapon that prevails. Sometimes patience, perception, and courage, qualities humans possess, make all the difference." In the following days, the summit concluded successfully. Delegates praised the Empress's wisdom and diplomacy. The alien advisors, now aware of the subtle influence they had been under, expressed gratitude for Kale's intervention. Many began to recognize the value of human perception and intuition, qualities that no amount of technology or alien cleverness could replicate. The artifact, now secured and rendered harmless by Kale's energy barriers, remained in the Citadel as a reminder. It had been a tool of influence, testing the Empress and those around her. But it had been outmatched by human courage and vigilance. Kale stood near the Empress in the Grand Hall observing the celebrations. "The galaxy is full of wonders, Your Majesty," he said, "and dangers. But humans have something unique, the ability to see what others cannot, and to act when others panic. That is why we are valuable," the Empress nodded. "And that is why I trust you, Kale. You see the truth when others are blinded by fear. You protect not only me, but the Empire itself." For the first time since the artifact's arrival, a sense of peace settled over the Citadel. The alien advisors relaxed and the delegates departed with respect and admiration. The Empress, guided by her human guard, had faced a challenge unlike any other and emerged stronger. Yet Kale remained vigilant. He knew that this victory, while significant, was not the end. The galaxy was full of unknown forces, subtle threats, and clever minds that would test the Empress again. But with human courage, perception, and insight on her side, she could face whatever came. As the moons rose over Valaria, casting silver light across the towers, Kyle reflected on what had happened. The artifact had been clever, subtle, and powerful, yet it had been outmatched by a simple truth. In a universe of advanced intelligence, human insight and courage were qualities that could not be replaced. The Empress, standing beside him, looked at the city below with quiet pride. "Tomorrow we continue the work of the Empire," she said. "And I know that with you by my side we can face any challenge." Kyle nodded. "Always, Your Majesty, always." And so, with the artifact neutralized and the Empress safe, the Citadel of Valeria returned to a cautious peace. But both the Empress and her human guard knew that vigilance was the key to survival. In a galaxy full of intelligence and mystery, it was human courage and perception that would continue to protect the Empire and guide its ruler through challenges yet to come. The Citadel of Valeria glowed under the light of the three suns. The summit had ended successfully and the delegates departed, praising the Empress for her wisdom, composure, and insight. Yet within the walls of the palace, the tension that had gripped the Empire still lingered. The alien advisors, though grateful for the protection of Captain Kale, had been shaken. Their panic had almost caused chaos, and now they faced the realization that their fear had blinded them to the truth. The Empress entered the Grand Hall, her robes flowing with quiet dignity. Kale stood at her side, ever watchful. Together they represented a partnership unlike any the Empire had seen before. A ruler guided by wisdom and courage, and a human guard whose insight and vigilance could detect threats invisible to others. "My advisors have learned a lesson they cannot forget," the Empress said softly, her eyes scanning the room. "Fear and panic are as dangerous as any enemy, and calm observation, Courage and thoughtful action are often the most powerful tools we possess. Kyle nodded. Humans see details others overlook. We notice patterns, subtleties, and dangers before they become overwhelming. That is why we are valuable, Your Majesty, and why you are safe. The advisors, humbled by the recent events, bowed deeply. Their voices were quiet but respectful. Your Majesty, we acted in fear and we nearly jeopardized the Empire. Thanks to Captain Kale, we see now how flawed our judgments were. We will serve more wisely in the future. The Empress smiled. It is not enough to simply serve, my advisors. One must also learn to see clearly and act with composure. Courage is not just about fighting battles. It is about understanding, patience, and insight. Let this experience guide your service from now on. Kyle watched as the advisors absorbed her words. He knew that humans often had a unique ability to understand subtle truths, but it was rare for others to see it. Today, the advisors had seen a glimpse of human perception and courage in action, and it had changed them. Meanwhile, the artifact rested in its chamber, now harmless and neutralized by Kale's energy barrier. The mysterious device that had caused so much fear was no longer a threat. Yet even in its quiet, it reminded everyone that the universe was full of clever forces, subtle dangers, and unexpected challenges. The Empress approached the artifact. For a moment, she placed her hand lightly on its surface, feeling no influence, only calm. It was clever, she said quietly. It tried to guide me, to shape my decisions without my consent. But it could not succeed. Not with you here, Kyle, and not with my mind free. Kale bowed slightly. We acted together, Your Majesty. The device could only do what it was allowed. Your courage and clear mind made all the difference. That afternoon, the Empress held a council with her advisors. This time the meeting was calm, focused, and productive. The delegates' return visits would be smooth, and the Empire's plans could continue without fear of manipulation. Kale observed quietly, ready to act if needed, but the calm atmosphere reassured him that the lessons had been learned. One of the alien advisors, still humbled, spoke softly. Your Majesty, Captain Kale, we have learned something important. Logic alone cannot predict everything. Fear can cloud judgment, and subtle dangers can be invisible. Your calm and insight, your human insight, Captain, has saved the Empire. Kale shook his head gently. It is not just me. Humans can observe, but it is the Empress who decides and acts. Without her courage and wisdom, observation alone would not be enough. The Empress placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. Together, we are stronger than any device or scheme. Your perception, courage, and dedication have protected not only me, but the Empire. Today we have proven that in a galaxy full of power and intelligence, the combination of wisdom and human insight is unmatched. Later, as the suns began to set, casting long golden shadows across the towers, Kale walked with the Empress through the courtyard. The air was quiet and calm, the panic that had once gripped the citadel replaced by thoughtful reflection. Captain, the Empress said softly, I have seen how humans notice what others cannot, how we can remain calm when others panic. Your courage and insight have shown me that even in a galaxy of powerful beings, we are never alone. We can face challenges together. Kyle smiled faintly. Humans see, Your Majesty. We notice details, patterns, and threats others miss. But it is your strength, your wisdom, and your courage that make the difference. Without you, observation alone is not enough. The Empress nodded. Then we are a team. Observation and courage together, guiding the Empire through challenges yet unseen. As the night deepened and the 3 moons rose over Valeria, the citadel seemed peaceful for the first time in days. The artifact remained in its chamber, inert, a reminder of the subtle threats that could arise. The advisors had learned humility, and the Empress had grown in understanding. And Captain Kale, the human guard who had seen what no one else could, remained vigilant, ready to protect her and the Empire from any future dangers. The next day, the Empress addressed the Empire's citizens from the grand balcony. Her voice was clear, confident, and inspiring. She spoke of courage, wisdom, vigilance, and unity. She told of the summit's success, the lessons learned, and the importance of calm observation and careful thought in a galaxy full of unknowns. The universe is vast and full of intelligence beyond our own, she said, but it is not always the strongest who prevail. Sometimes it is the observant, the patient, and the courageous who protect us, guide us, and ensure that justice and wisdom prevail. Below, the citizens listened intently, inspired not only by the Empress's words but by the knowledge that her leadership had been preserved by insight, courage, and the vigilance of those who served her faithfully. Kale stood near the balcony, his eyes scanning the horizon. The galaxy was still full of mysteries and dangers, yet for the first time, he felt a quiet satisfaction. The Empress was safe, her advisors wiser, and the Empire stronger. Human perception and courage had made the difference, and the subtle but powerful influence of fear and panic had been overcome. As the moons cast silver light over the towers of Valeria, Kale reflected on the events. The artifact had tested them all, revealing weaknesses, fears, and the subtle power of influence. Yet it had also shown what humans could do: remain calm, observe, understand, and act decisively when others could not. In a galaxy of infinite possibilities, these qualities were invaluable. The Empress, standing beside him, looked out over her city. "Tomorrow new challenges will come," she said softly. "But I am ready, and I know that as long as you are here, Captain, we can face whatever arises." Kyle bowed. "Always, Your Majesty. Always." And so the Empire of Valeria continued under the guidance of a wise Empress and her human guard. The artifact was neutralized, the advisors learned humility, and the citizens had witnessed the value of courage, observation, and clear thought. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and wonders alike, but for now Valeria was safe. In the end, it was not technology, not power, nor fear that had preserved the Empress and her empire. It was the simple but profound qualities of humanity, courage, perception, and unwavering vigilance that had prevailed. And Captain Kale, the human guard who had seen what no one else could, remained a symbol of that truth. The stars above Valeria shone brightly, a reminder of the infinite possibilities of the universe. And in the quiet of the citadel, the Empress and her human guard stood ready to face whatever came next, knowing that insight, courage, and calm observation would always be their greatest allies. The Empire had survived, the Empress had prevailed, and humanity, in the form of a single vigilant guard, had once again proven its unique and invaluable strength.